Hello, welcome to Sauna Talks. Never done anything like this before, and I think I'm going to continue doing it just so I have a place to put some ideas and focus that I think needs to be heard at this point. First, a little bit about me. I'm a single dad with two kids. A MGTOW sympathizer. A bit of an objectivist, and I think pretty clearly when it comes to things and issues in my life, and I think that I can help others. In the past, I have worked with a lot of men going through men's issues. I've tried to help women as best I can, but we all know that there's limitations there due to their nature and due to the amount of societal help they already have, as well as their overwhelming amount of choices that they have in their life. It makes them difficult to help. Worked with kids in the past, worked at Eckerd Youth Alternatives and a lot of Home for Children, using positive peer culture and also cognitive-based therapy to work with teenagers that had trouble making good decisions in their life for one reason or another. Generally speaking, besides the early childhood trauma or neglect that teenagers were pretty unique in expressing through anger or dishonesty or behavior or poor impulses, there's the nature of choice that everybody has when it comes to making a decision, and there's a way to look at it that's fairly simple. And I'm going to give you two different ways to look at the nature of choice and the way it reflects reality. The first, I think we're going to talk about our reality pictures, and it's a pretty easy to digest way to look at problems that you're having trouble solving. That is, there's two different ways to look at the world, and the trick is to become more objective in your thinking or closer to reality. So imagine there are two televisions, one here and one here, and somewhere in the middle there's reality, and they're balanced on a scale. So in the first TV, you have your subjective reality, and you might be rejected, you might have trouble finding traction in your life, and it's probably upsetting. A lot of that is because you're not able to see objective reality. So you keep trying to force your subjective picture of what's going on onto the world at large. And it's got to be incredibly frustrating. I know I've been frustrated in the past by trying to force my reality on other people or situations or anything else, rather than taking a step back and looking at it objectively. Typically what happens when you try to force subjective reality on the world is you have an escalation of behaviors to try to change it. So here's the baseline, we're just cruising along. Then there's a crisis of some kind that's an opportunity to grow from, but we can talk about that later. So as the crisis rises, you're trying to desperately force reality on to the situation or person, and maybe they're not buying it. So you have the crisis up here, and then the de-escalation eventually, if you're able to do it. When you've come down off of the giant curve into de-escalation, whether you want to or not, typically you'll start to understand that objective reality is probably going to win in the end. And people get depressed. People have self-medicating behaviors. People tend not to like having their subjective view of reality forced into the overwhelming objective reality that exists for everyone. So the trick, rather than to go up and down the escalation and de-escalation as crisis, is to understand that your subjective view of reality has got to match up with objective reality. So you're trying to focus two pictures into one. And to do that, you need to have empathy and understanding into what's going on and how you're reacting to it. The easiest way to tell if you're living in a subjective view of reality and trying to force your picture on and failing onto reality is, are you using argument fallacies to back your own argument? Are you gaslighting? Are you changing the past to suit your sense of reality? Are you straight up lying about it? Are you changing the goalposts? Are you thinking about things clearly in a way where the pictures of reality are more likely to mesh up between subjective and objective realities? So if you can reach the point to where you understand that what you're doing isn't working, what you're trying to do is to save yourself the rise and fall of an uncontrolled crisis. So if you can stop yourself and take a look at things objectively and understand that maybe if you're being dishonest about what's going on in your life, that you've got a chance to turn it around and have it more in line with reality, you're more likely to be happy with the outcome. And there's a trick, or actually a series of questions that help you understand what you want. The questions I use are just 4 or 5 simple questions I ask myself and I ask other people when they're in these sort of conundrums and are having trouble facing what's actually going on in their lives. And they're fairly simple to remember. What are you doing? Is what you're doing getting you what you want? What behavior will get you what you want? And how's it affecting your life? Is it too much of a sacrifice? Does it cost somebody that you care about? I mean, we also live by the golden rule, do unto others how we will be treated. So we need to keep in mind that there are considerations about getting what we want. Like destroying somebody else to get you what you want is absolute error in thinking and won't lead to anything but more bitterness and more thinking errors. So for example, I'm having a problem. Say I am having a problem losing weight or something like that. So what am I doing? Well, I'm sitting on the couch. Is what I'm doing getting me what I want? Absolutely not. What will get me what I want? Going to the gym, eating less, eating better, taking care of myself, maybe cutting out alcohol, cutting out drug use if that's your thing. But the fact is there's things that you can do to change your reality rather than trying to force your subjective view of reality onto the world. In the case of being overweight, maybe instead of going on a diet, you start a movement for fat acceptance. Absolute waste of time, because rather than working hard to change your subjective view of reality, which is, being fat is totally healthy and you're a beautiful woman or man worth time and effort, is not objective reality. You're chronically unhealthy and you're forcing the world to change rather than yourself. I think it is a fantastic pity that the world is now in a place where subjective reality has so many people that are agreeing with it. You do not have to agree with subjective reality. Yes, there are 2 genders. Yes, being overweight is unhealthy. Yes, feminism takes all of the rights of men and very few of the responsibilities. So any of these fringe movements that are trying to build mainstream appeal start with individuals. They start with subjective reality and what they want, and rather than change their own behavior to get what they want from the world, they're trying to force their giant, ridiculous garbage onto society at large. And this works on a personal level every single time. So let's remember two things. If you're having problems, probably you have a subjective view somewhere, a thinking error that needs to be corrected. Okay. The next thing is, if you're doing that and you're forcing it onto reality, then you'll probably go through the curve of crisis. And you may end up at the bottom of that curve rather than cutting it off where you can before it hits the top and it's out of control. There are a series of questions that you can ask. What do I want? What am I doing? Is what I'm doing getting me what I want, and what will? These are simple questions that any sane person can ask themselves to have a much happier view of reality. And that's the point of being human, is to engage the world in a way that's realistic and positive and has a net good for humanity. So next time you're frustrated, take a moment, step back, have what some used to call a null A pause, or a non-Aristotelian pause, and just think to yourself, like, is what I'm doing working? And if it's not, reconsider your position. What will work? It certainly beats the plane crash of crises or the rise of a fringe movement based on your flaws understanding reality or general thinking errors. This is why we're in such a huge mess, because personal accountability has just flown out the bloody window. And it's time to grow up. Put on your big girl pants, ladies. Put on your big boy pants, guys. It's time to grow up and start taking responsibilities for your actions. Don't step on people. Don't force your lunacy on society at large, or you will breed it. You reap essentially what you sow. So thank you for listening. This is the first issue of this, and I like the sauna. These are typically the conversations I have with other men that come into the sauna, and it's a pleasure to meet you all, and I'm going to continue to put the word out about everything I possibly can, because there needs to be more voices in the wilderness in this day and age, more than has ever been needed before. So please take a moment, pause and consider what I've said, and try to live in objective reality where things can have rational outcomes, because if everybody does it, behavior becomes predictable. That's the key. Okay, to building relationships is predictable behavior. So I'll talk about that next time. We'll talk about relationship poker and how to bet on relationships that will pay off. But for now, Godspeed. I hope you're having a pleasant Sunday. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Whatever. Take it easy. Sauna Talks out.